Hello, and welcome back to the Choose UCalgary Podcast. For the last time, I'm your Season 8 host, Karah, and today we are sitting down with the graduate students in the Canid Conservation Science Lab under the direction of Dr. Shelley Alexander. The Canid Conservation Science Lab works to understand and coexist with wildlife on campus, with students working in volunteer positions all the way up to graduate researchers. Listen in to learn more about life as a student in research. Welcome to the Choose UCalgary Podcast. Thanks for coming on. I think to get going, we're just going to start off. Are you able to share a little bit about yourselves, your programs, and then how long you've been working with Dr. Shelley Alexander?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Caroline O'Connor. I'm from Ontario originally, and then I completed my undergraduate degree in sociology and environmental and sustainability studies in Nova Scotia.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and then I ended up coming to UFC actually because of the Canid Conservation Science Lab, and to work with Shelley Alexander on my master's degree, which I just recently defended. So I'm very freshly graduated on that. And that was to look at people's emotions towards coyotes, what influences those emotions, and how that relates to their acceptance of different lethal and non-lethal methods used on coyotes.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
My name is Robert Mitchell. I am also a master's student with Shelley. Kind of similar story to Caroline, coming from Ontario. I did my undergrad at U Ottawa in biology. So more of that biology background, which kind of led to my doing my project here with Shelley on behavior and kind of spatial patterns in behavior of coyotes around the city and how that relates to management strategies. So I guess came over here because of the opportunity to work with large predators, carnivores was kind of what I was hoping for, and there's opportunity in this lab, so yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, definitely. And then what drew both of you, like, was there anything about the city or UCalgary as a school that kind of drew you in to choose UCalgary for your master's?
Well, for me, I'm a competitive runner, and the UFC cross-country team had just won like back-to-back nationals.
Yep.
So that was kind of part of a draw to coming out here. So getting to be a part of that big team and competing at the national level with the team was definitely an additional thing, but it was definitely the focus of coming here was to work in the lab on coyotes.
Yeah, definitely. Anything?
Yeah, so I'm not a runner, not a good one at least, but I came out here because of the lab specifically, and then also I do really enjoy the outdoors just for recreational time and for that downtime. If you need a little break from your studies, I like being just an hour away from the mountains to go hiking.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really nice. I know that's a really big pull for like prospective high school students to come, is just because of how close we are to everything. The mountains, we've got the prairies, we've got everything kind of nearby. It's a little mix of everything right here in the city, which is really nice. And yeah, lots of students are really drawn in because of the mountains. So that's a big one.
Well, and also coming from out of province, I didn't bring too much outdoor equipment with me when moving.
Yep.
So having that outdoor center that's here with the very affordable rentals is nice to have too.
Yeah, it's nice to know that you don't have to pack up your entire life and bring it over. You can just, rent here. I always use the outdoor center for like grabbing skates to go to the Olympic Oval or something like that, or like hiking shoes or tents, camping stuff, because I don't go camping very often. I don't need to buy a whole camp stove, but it's nice to be able to rent it if need be. So definitely, yeah, the outdoor center is very nice, especially for students. And then kind of looking a little bit into your positions and tasks within the Canid Conservation Science Lab, are there any specific ones that stand out to you, so specific tasks or roles that you kind of took on in your time with Dr. Shelley Alexander?
Well, something that I really liked personally was that my research was very much focused on the human dimension side, but I wanted to also learn to expand and practice different techniques as well with the wildlife tracking and checking the research cameras and the maintenance on them. And so being able to go out in the field with Shelley Alexander, Robbie, the other volunteers in the lab as well, and just to get more of that field aspect of it too, that was really valuable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my project was a lot more field-based, so I did a lot of work with the cameras. We have cameras set up to capture images of coyotes at different parts of the city. So then I was doing weekly checks of some of the ones on campus and some of the ones at one of the other sites. So just like downloading pictures, going out with Shelley or Caroline or some of the other students we have, helping kind of mentor one of the undergrads who then took on a larger role in this after I was focused on writing. I also did a lot of work going through the photos that we were collecting, so analyzing them, sorting them, a lot of sorting, a lot of pictures, yeah, I guess that was more or less my role.
Yeah. It's cool to see the dynamic where it's like you had your undergraduate in the science field and you did your undergraduate kind of in more the social science field. So it's really cool to see kind of two sides of a story here where it's like, you know, you go in with sciences, you're interested in sciences, but then you go in with social sciences and you still end up kind of in the science field while also looking at like the human aspect of things. That's really cool to see like that dynamic. It's a very cool opportunity that I think lots of students, especially students out of high school, don't really realize, is that there's just an endless amount of possibilities with any degree that you kind of choose. So that's really cool that both of you are kind of coming from different undergrads, but are similar, you know, masters, not similar, but in like the same lab. And then how has your involvement in the conservation lab enhanced your graduate studies, and how has volunteering helped you throughout your undergraduate and graduate programs? So did you complete any volunteering in your undergraduate, or has it like mainly been in your graduate program?
I think I did some volunteering in my undergrad just as part of the running team out at the University of Ottawa, helping out at different events and races. But more so here, I guess the volunteering that we do lately is going around campus and looking for food sources, potential food sources for coyotes, and just calling it in if we see anything to make sure that they don't have any opportunity to eat on something on campus that they're not supposed to, because that can then be leading to conflict, which we want to avoid as much as possible.
Yeah, so in my undergraduate degree, I'm trying to recall, I feel like I didn't volunteer too much, but I had taken a couple years off in between my undergraduate degree and coming here for my master's degree. And in that time, that's actually what made me realize that I wanted to do a thesis-based master's and that I did want to continue on in a field of wildlife conservation, because it's funny how you mentioned how we're coming from different backgrounds, because I had it in my head that, oh, then I'm limited. I now can't actually get into wildlife conservation, because in my mind, you had to be coming from a biology degree, which I did not have. And so I wanted to get more field experience, and I think it was mainly, it did expose me to wildlife conservation a bit more, but also it was mainly a confidence thing, I think, really, where it was, oh, I can do this, and I can learn this, and that's what really helped me with the volunteering. And that was, right after my undergraduate degree. And then here, we're going out and doing the wildlife attractant surveys, and then I volunteered within the geography department as well, as the student life, so helping create the sense of community in the department, which is interesting too, because I feel like it's also very much reflected in our lab too, having undergraduate students and graduate students in this lab from different backgrounds right now at different parts in their academic career, maybe their wildlife conservation career, and just having that sense of community in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have that like mingling amongst people, because I feel like sometimes, faculties get very like, you're in your own little segment and that's like as far as you go. So it's nice to know that there's lots of like mingling between you and undergraduate students and students from different like programs and backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. And then what advice would you give to any prospective students who are interested maybe in wildlife conservation? And then how would you suggest that they get involved? So whether that be in their undergraduate or after their undergraduate into their master's, is there any advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think, again, it kind of relates back to what you were saying about us coming from the two different backgrounds, is don't let that stop you. Don't let your age stop you either. In just getting involved in anything for that matter. We attended a couple of conferences, and that was, I think, eye-opening, even though we were already a year and a half or 2 years into our master's, and meeting people who were years older than us just considering a career change. And that's why they were there to listen and to learn. And maybe you aren't super comfortable going up and talking to everyone after their presentation, but at least then you can go and sit there and hear these presentations and learn about how diverse wildlife conservation can be and what might spark your interest or what questions may form from that. And then if you're comfortable, you can speak to the people afterwards. It's kind of the nice setup of conferences as well. Or there's even just online talks. If I think there's a bit less discussion with some of the online talks, but you can still sit back and listen to some of those presentations and learn there. Volunteering, of course, as well. And then there's also citizen science projects, too, that you can get involved with. I don't know any off the top of my head, but if you Google, there's a bunch. There's a website, I think it's Zooniverse, yeah, where you can get practice with different methods as well. Like there's some research camera photos in there. There's some whale audio I was looking at the other day. Wow. Yeah, so there's ways to get involved that are lower commitment, and then you can get to higher commitment as well, maybe with a degree or just speaking to professors as well that you're interested in working with. Like one of the students I was a TA for a teaching assistant for one of Shelley Alexander's classes, animal geography. And there was an undergraduate student in that class from a different program, and they ended up coming up and just talking to me that they were interested in this program, and they're starting to realize how it kind of ties into their other program, and asking on more ways to get involved. And now they are actually one of the volunteers in our lab. So yeah, it works. If you're comfortable communicating with people, then ask around for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, those are all definitely good points. Like the volunteer in Zooniverse, there's a lot of things you can do there. I guess don't be shy to talk to professors or your teaching assistants. Like they're people too. They're usually like willing to speak with people and happy to have help from those who want to volunteer, and maybe that can lead into other opportunities for future, like masters or work or something else. I guess try to get as many different opportunities as you can. I was lucky in my undergrad, I was in the co-op program, so I worked like every other term in a different sector, all kind of related to environmental stuff, but got to see what things that I liked and what things that I didn't really like. So just exposing yourself to all those different opportunities. If you're in the really biology stream, one thing that I came across a little later than I would have liked is getting involved with the Alberta Society of Professional Biologists.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of an important one if you're going to work or hoping to work as a biologist, getting after this professional designation, and you can sign up as a student and then as a biologist in training and work towards that. So definitely something that could be a good thing to think about early on if you're looking at that stream. But yeah, again, there's lots, even if you're not in that biology specific stream, there's definitely a lot of opportunity. Like I had one job in a NGO which had biologists, but also people with like a very diverse backgrounds, all working on sustaining wildlife and parks in Canada. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to find those opportunities and take advantage of them. I know my favorite piece of advice to tell students is just not go too fast. Take your time, take advantage of every opportunity that comes across your path, and you never know what could come from it, like talking to your TA and now you have the opportunity to volunteer in a research field that you're really interested in, or finding an online designation or anything like that. Those are all great ways to just work a little bit closer towards your career that you want to take. And I think speaking a little bit towards careers, and with both of you finishing your masters, how did you feel throughout your masters? How did you feel that being a part of the conservation lab really helped you understand your topic better? So defending your thesis and all that, how did you feel that being involved in the conservation lab helped you with defending your thesis and coming up with your thesis and everything like that just a little bit more?
I think for me, it kind of highlighted my interest in animal behavior and working with wildlife, which is something I had to looked a little bit into in my undergrad, but didn't really know for sure that was what I wanted to get into. But working here and just, it was a lot of work going through hundreds of thousands of photos of coyotes, but seeing all the different behaviors they have and how they change and place and time was really cool for me to see. So kind of finding my sphere, I guess, and then now, when I'm looking out for work, I can kind of try to hone in on those kinds of opportunities. I also really like, I guess, analytical stuff, so using R, which is a statistical software, and ArcGIS, which is for spatial stuff like mapping and spatial analysis, so learning more about those things, and working on those skills to look for opportunities in that field.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I had used a very, very large, primarily qualitative data set, mixed methods, for my thesis research that Dr. Shelley Alexander and Dr. Diane Draper had collected. And I would not have been able to have collected that extensive data at that level if I were to have done that on my own time during my master's. So being able to work with such a large, primarily qualitative data set was really beneficial and opened my eyes a lot to the topic that I was looking at, and really I had the flexibility to explore where that data took me rather than focusing maybe on one specific question, which I really liked and valued. I'm nosy and I like to know all these reasons why and come up with 1,000 questions while looking at the data. That being able to work with such a large set kind of allowed me to explore, which was great. And then also just collaborating with the undergraduate students as well and hearing what Robert's working on. It all really fascinates me, and just hearing the different ways that people got involved and why they're there and how they're still learning about wildlife conservation as well. And going out and doing the attractant surveys, you can see how these human dimensions are applied to already on campus as well, and the potential for conflict to occur that people may be doing knowingly or unknowingly. So just being able to actually not just generate knowledge, but be able to apply it to the campus community here and just with communication with the other members of the lab as well.
Yeah, lots of kind of working with everyone. It's a big group team effort, it sounds like, on campus here. Do you want to stay in the loop on all things UCalgary? Make sure to join our email list so you don't miss key updates, events, and insider info to help you start your journey to becoming a UCalgary Dino. Register at the link in our show notes. And because you guys are both completed your master's, do you have any ideas on, or maybe you have already kind of progressed in your careers in wildlife conservation or anything where you've taken your skills from your master's and moved it into a career? Do you have any career prospects in mind or ideas for what your dream career would be kind of in relation to your master's?
Something that was really fascinating to me that kind of shocked myself when finishing my master's was that I never got tired of my research, especially when working on it for 2.5 years. I thought there would come a point maybe where I get tired of looking at the data and working with the data, but I never did. And I think that just helped reassure me that my passion is human-wildlife conflict and human-wildlife coexistence. And I would like to continue a career, I think primarily on the research side, looking into different conflicts that do exist or potential ones that could arise and steps that could be taken towards coexistence.
Yeah, definitely.
Also still looking for jobs, but have been applying to lots of different things, kind of with that focus on wildlife biology, ecology. I think ideally I would want to be working in an urban setting. I've spoken with some urban ecologists with the city of Calgary, and what they do sounds really interesting. So kind of bringing my wildlife behavior background into that kind of field would be something I would be really, really interested in. But I think because I, just kind of coming out of school, it takes a few steps to get to those careers.
Yeah.
Like going back to that professional biologist designation, you need to work in like a few years of kind of more junior positions, so more general field biology kind of things before we're getting to the more higher level careers.
Yeah, definitely. And then this is just kind of like wrapping up a little bit here, but in what ways have you seen a positive impact of your research and conflict prevention on campus? So how has it created a stronger relationship between students and wildlife on campus? But have you seen any impacts of your research or your efforts on campus in the campus community, anything like that you kind of want to share with prospective students?
I think when we first started doing the attractant surveys, we were seeing a lot of garbage and food waste all over, and I don't know if it's related to our calling it in and everything, if the grounds crew is like more on it to clean stuff up, or students are more on it, but it seems like there's less stuff out there that we've been seeing more recently. Could just be a coincidence, but I don't know, I like to think that maybe we are having an impact, having all these eyes on the ground, looking for all that. In terms of the community, I guess I'm a part of the running community, and kind of sharing my work and research with them has made that group of people at least a little bit more interested in coyotes and living with them on campus. And I often get emails or messages from people with pictures like, oh, there's a coyote we saw. So that's kind of cool to see that, just, I don't know, piquing some people's interest. So it may not be a big group of people, but just, a few people changing their views is enough.
Yeah, spreading awareness, getting it out there. It doesn't matter to who, just to let people know kind of what's up on campus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, actually, because even just when people would ask me, oh, what are you studying? And if I said human-wildlife coexistence, I was frequently asked, what side are you on then, the people's or the wildlife? So it was explaining how coexistence actually is people and wildlife, not a or option there. So just how much word of mouth does actually seem to make a difference and spread around. And yeah, I'd say with the wildlife attractant surveys, it's interesting to see that there is the change in food left around, whether that be directly related to us or not, but also seeing that can help inform educational materials, which a couple of the undergraduate volunteers are working on. And even just in the lab, like when they show some of the educational materials, and you might hear someone say, oh, I didn't know that. And it's good, easy practices where you're not necessarily asking people to change their beliefs about something, but it might be different ways to express those beliefs. For instance, one of the educational infographics, I believe it is, that was being worked on had information about feeding wildlife and the negative impacts of that, where when talking to people, sometimes they express that they feed wildlife because they love wildlife. And realistically, that can create conflict. So it's interesting to see that the work that we're doing can be turned into these tangible educational materials that can make a difference and are attainable, I think, in most cases.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think before we wrap up here, Shelley, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just wanted to note that Caroline was responsible for setting up our at Canid Lab social media site, and both Caroline and Robbie were great support in getting our lab into that and maintaining that site, and the research contributes materials to that. Each of their research helps focus and draw attention to it. And one thing I think I've noticed that is nice, I think, for students who are finishing up is that they've both been returning to the conferences and presentations and still have a connection to the lab, but also to the department and to the other members of that. it shows you the diversity of things that people can do if they come into a lab to help out. And I want to, reiterate what both of them said, which was, for students coming in, don't try not to be afraid or intimidated to talk to your profs and find out if there's volunteer opportunities, because that's, it's really good for building your CV and for next opportunities, like for grad school or whatever. I think you mentioned the multidisciplinary aspects of the lab, and our lab in particular. Well, we're in geography, and so geography offers this area where these syntheses can happen very easily, as opposed to being more narrowly prescribed research and courses in that. The attractant surveys definitely have made an impact on day-to-day activities on campus, and there are many wildlife species, and I think that's what I like students to think about, is that this is a living campus with all, there are bobcats, there are deer, family of deer, there's rabbits, there's raccoons, there's skunks, there's the whole sort of urban ecosystem here, and and it demonstrates that we can coexist. Mm-hmm. And so the attractant surveys are actually, they are acted on. So the students report to me, that goes immediately to the central to grounds administration, and then within the day those sites are cleaned up. And the removal of attractants is critical for all wildlife, because those attractants lead to conflict. So if we have a direct impact. Their surveys have been they will make the difference in coexistence. So in terms of students, the opportunities heading out, they're early in having graduated just a few months ago, but a lot of the former students, they've ended up in a diverse range of things, from consulting, consulting with consulting agencies, environmental consulting agencies. I've got students who work at, the Zoo Conservation Center, in oil and gas, in nonprofits, in government, and so there's a lot of ways that students who go through these programs, and particularly in geography, can end up in a multiple, and varied career, but also coming out of the lab, the prospects are good so far, based on history. Anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah, definitely. There's always, you don't realize how many opportunities you have until they're all placed in front of you all at once, and now you have to kind of go from there, right? So definitely some really great things that I think prospective students are really going to love hearing about, because I know that the graduate side of things is something that students think about in high school, but they don't really know too much about. So it's really good to hear a little bit more about that side of things, as opposed to just undergraduates and just coming in from high school, to kind of show the different opportunities that students can have when they go into their undergraduate program, and to kind of keep their options open, because you never know what's going to happen. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, you guys. I'm sure prospective students are really going to love listening to this one.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to part 2 of the Canid Conservation Science Lab podcast with Dr. Shelley Alexander and the UCalgary students involved in her lab, and the last episode of Season 8. Hosting next season will be Arista, a visual studies student at the University of Calgary. Thank you all for listening to Season 8 of the Choose UCalgary podcast. As always, make sure to follow us on Instagram at choose.ucalgary and on Facebook at the University of Calgary Future Students. Make sure to DM us if you have any questions.